Hi everyone, welcome to our session. We are about to start the session in 4 minutes. Please grab a seat and mute your devices. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session. So our next speakers are Artem and Pascal. They are come from Aurelis. And today's talk, they are going to talking about self-service analytics, and governance. So welcome.
So, hello everybody. It's really nice to see you all here. And let's imagine we have one tool to perform all governance tasks for you and your customer. Would not it be great? And yes, it's a Unity catalog. And we will talk about it today. But first, let me introduce Pascal, senior consultant from Aurelis, Germany, Databricks certified champion, already with more than 7 years of experience in cloud, in big data.
Thank you very much. Great to being here. Let me introduce my colleague, which is Artem. It's also some champion from Aurelis, and with 5 years of experience and our Unity catalog specialist. So I will briefly introduce the company, so don't worry, don't bother you long. We are on the market since 24 years, focusing on BI, business intelligence, as well as on big data and AI. And our main focus is being customer-based and being customer-focused and team-focused. So, before we go into the presentation, for those people who might not can attend the whole day or the whole time, that are our key takeaways for today. I will prove that. Governance is for all, stakeholders are your key, and the Unity catalog unifies your data lakehouse platform. So let's briefly go through the agenda. I will take you on a journey. We will travel to 4 different continents with different purposes, starting with Once Upon a Time, which is basically the status quo at that time, leading over to the Unity catalog, having a session with, wait, what's in it for me, because that's the reason why you're here, and having a short, brief review on what we have achieved with it. So let's start with Once Upon a Time. And there we split it in facts, pre-Unity architecture, and the current limitations of the platform we had in place. So the platform was historically grown. It was a large platform distributed over multiple areas, has a lot of use cases, a bunch of users, and comes from a more or less greenfield area. So there, due to time beings and time issues and developing of technology and new code options, tool also architectural limitations took place and just was a problem for us, as well as that our customer at that time had a high expectation in regards of security and governance at all.
So, interesting. But what about numbers? We have more than 30 data sources. Our global data platform is 600 terabyte big. It's continually growing. We have more than 10,000 objects that was developed by more than 150 developers. We have a lot of customers, like 7,000 and more, with a lot of the use cases.
So let's have a brief look into the architecture. So we had this medallion architecture with some extensions you might know. If you are in your own project or in your own company and having the same situation, thinking about migrating, that should be familiar. Here we see 3 squared areas, which are the pain points for our architecture at that time, because that were the points where we had to define permission, governance situations, or anything else. So as you see, there are 3 different areas which might be problematic, and at least in Europe, there is a regulation law, which is called GDPR, which forces you somehow to be compliant and be able to do certain things to get the user out of everything. So therefore, that was a hack, and it was a problem for that customer because there are not only 3 different points, there are also 3 different teams potentially there, and that might impact even efficiency as well as the time it takes to permission or get permission out of it. So due to that, we come to that point where we have the limitations of that platform at that time. And the platform, besides of the global collaboration effort we made there, we're still struggling with certain collaboration opportunities for certain user groups. Those user groups have just limited access to the data and could not bring their own data at that time. So that was a big deal. And due to missing unification of that governance aspect, there was also a couple of struggling because the users itself somehow need to apply for permission or the process has to be applied. So it was not that easy. And keep in mind compliance issues.
So let's check the next chapter. Hello, Unity Catalog. In this chapter, we will check the requirements, Unity architecture, and the challenges that we faced in our journey. You already hear about pre-Unity requirements. We should keep them in mind. But right now, with the Unity Catalog, we have new requirements. And it's about enabling global data access to give business units possibility to collaborate. But we still need to support our permission concept and fulfill all of the governance and security expectations. It means for us, we did some changes on this architecture picture, and main change you can see here. We are able right now with the Unity Catalog to govern, to give the permissions to do all of this stuff just in one place in account console, supported by the Unity Catalog. Another big difference you can see in bottom right corner, this is business unit Databricks workspace and a small business unit data lake. It means for us, the business unit users can access our global data via their workspace, and they can use their own data to run analytical workloads. So, but we faced some challenges in our journey. And the first of them was runtime upgrade. It was not easy to upgrade to the latest runtime that we needed to implement the Unity Catalog. We faced some cluster limitation. We had a super tight project deadlines. It's already known by you all, I think. And that's why we was not able to create completed migration paths and to completely think how we want to migrate our platform. We have some problems with nested groups, with this Steam connector, and well, that's the main challenge that we faced.
So let's come to a point where we thought more about the things we had there at that time for that wait, what's in it factor. You know already that we have the situation of the original architecture. We had that situation of this new Unity architecture, and the target basically was to enable the user groups of different business units to get all those things together. Yeah? So in best case, automatize all those things as well with some scripts so that we have self-service thinking to enable self-service approach. And well, that means we thought about some things, considerations, actions, as well as lessons learned and do's and don'ts we faced. So I think we're a bit fast. Well, first consideration here is the data size. Yeah? We had that platform at that time, and this platform itself was distributed over a bunch of subscription environments and all that things. You might know that from your own projects, from your own companies. So there's, if you have an historically grown project or IT system, that is not designed once fit all, and usually you extend it one by one. That brings us to the considerations, what can we do with this large platform? How we should do that? How we should migrate to the Unity catalog section, and what can we do basically to make it even smooth with less impact? We have a lot of distributed storages there. It means not even all the data were at one point, or all the data were at this accessible point here. And we thought about, hey, should we do it in a big bang so that the impact of the user itself is maybe minimal, or should we do it segment-wise or rolling waves so that we might go one by one to be more confident? Well, we will see. Another one were the code limitations we had due to the fact that we are a historically grown one. So, you know, sometimes you write a new function, sometimes you write a new code. This code works fine, and you never touch it again until it's a problem. So, but tooling as well as languaging and technology is evolving and developing, so which means here for us we had certain limitations to consider, because maybe some of our code is that old that it's not usable in the new version of the runtime or in the new version of the architecture, such like libraries using pandas or even an Excel export, which I think everybody knows is something what the user commonly asks for. So we had some limitations also regarding the Python UDFs, because we had some in place that was not possible at that time when we coded that, and we had to think about how to rewrite them or to get things, but let's see. And at the beginning, there were no Scala or RDD possibility at that setup, because there were limitations as well from a perspective of the tooling, because it was early adopter, as well as from the procedure-wise. Finally, we had to think about data visibility, because that was our target. We want to make it possible that the data, which is globally stored somewhere, and even if it's distributed globally stored, but it should be accessible for all the users, all the customers, which want to consume them and gain benefits, values, or something else out of it. Therefore, we had something to design for the business units. Could be department, could be a user group, could be whatever, name it, yeah? And at the end, it should be accessible for all of them. But let's see.
So, great considerations. And what we did. First, we tried a big bang, but it failed. And we decided to go with a rolling wave approach. So just step by step, define the objects, segment them, and migrate. Yeah, with the code limitations, it was not easy deal, I would say. We need to review all of our code, trying to simplify it, use just Spark. But by the way, we was able to use new features for the new runtime, new functions, and then we was able to do our code more fast and just looking better. And data visibility, our solution was the layer concept. that you can see on this slide. Unfortunately, it's really simplified because the whole concept will be not really readable. And let's start from the top. You can see Unity Catalog MetaStore, it's one per region. And then you can see 3 catalogs. In this example, the global catalog, the shared catalog, and the self-service catalog, and the environment. Environment means that all of the catalogs will be present in all our tiers: development, testing, and production. The global catalog is used to store our global data, our platform data. The self-service catalog is used to store the data that belongs to the business unit. And the catalog shared service is used to share the data with the business units, our global data. Looks good, but what about the rights, the privileges? In this example, you can see only 2 user groups. On the left side is the owner group. The owner group had nearly all rights and privileges on all global objects, on our platform, on our core, like owner of the storage credential, external location, and yeah, they can do nearly all. In opposite to owner group, on the right side, you can see business unit A user group. The business unit A user group have no rights on our global data. They have a lot of rights on self-service catalog. It will be integrated to schemas, and then they can do nearly all what they want. They can only read the data in shared catalog, but it's also covered by row-level security, and we can be sure that the business user from group A can only read the data that belongs to the group A and not to B. And as example, on the right side, you can see self-service subscription with 2 Databricks workspace. It can be easily rolled out with a Terraform. So, and then we had new considerations. And it was, okay, it's all adopter challenges. Not all features was directly here. We need to wait. We wasn't not sure about hard and soft limits. If we can somehow break them, or maybe we can explode them, push them. Yeah, that's true. Thank you. And our consideration was how we can keep our 3-tier architecture concept. Early, we had 3 metastores, and they was physically just 3 metastores. And it was consideration, because right now with the Unity catalog, we are only able to have 1 metastore per region. Then it was clustered considerations. One more time, you already heard about libraries and init script limitation, code language limitations, and yeah, it was a challenge. And the last, the objects to migrate. You already heard we have a lot of objects in our platform, like 10,000 objects, and the consideration was, okay, which objects do we need to migrate? How to migrate them? And we have not only tables, we have external tables, managed tables, external tables based on GDBS in the views. And it was really hard challenge to just understand what to migrate and how.
So there are considerations. So what we did, let's think about that. Well, luckily, through vendor support, through communication with the vendor, especially to cover those early adopter challenges, it's always good to communicate. And when vendor knows the tool best, we had a good exchange with Databricks itself to make it happen and make it possible. We have adapted minor changes and minor adaptation to the architecture because of certain hard limits which are on purpose, or certain limitations which are in soft limits, or coming from our own procedural thinking, as well as the Unity catalog binding procedure to enable our workspace binding in terms of a 3-tier architecture. So what happened basically, we just get rid of all those 3 different metastores. We have just 1 metastore and taking out. So now our metastore level is the catalog level, because you have added level in this hierarchy construct. Means due to the workspace binding, only people who are supposed to see the production or the integration or the development can see that. So everything is visible for them. If not, but that's up to your decision. Then we thought about this cluster thingy. Yeah? Keep in mind, we want to limit things. It is not nothing what the technology is basically limited, that is on purpose. What we need to do is here, think about our old process track, our old architecture, where the processes go, so the loads. Yeah? So, because some of those loads you don't need to give to the users at the end. So you don't need to govern them in that format that you need to fine-grained permission concept or what else. You just need things which running isolated, and there are different clusters for it. Yeah? So keep that in mind. So divide and conquer your load, because you might think about the monolithic construct which starts from the beginning and finalizes until the end of the user serve. But that's not possible. You won't be able to do that, and you don't want it, basically. So capsulation is a keyword here. Think about more like a product approach. Think that your use cases are doing things, and then if there's, for example, an Excel case where you need some init scripts, some libraries which are not governed by the Unity catalog, so that you can run it differently, because nobody needs to go on that cluster. Nobody needs to go on the data, because it's passed through, and then once it is done with the rest of the ETL, it will be visible to the customer. Objects-wise, we have seen that at the beginning in the facts we have more than 10,000 items and objects. Huh? So that's a lot, and that's not even all. So we just guessed it. And the thingy to keep in mind here is Databricks provides the onboard resources for at least a certain amount of object types, but not for all, unluckily, because maybe it's on design, because the object type itself does not allow it. Yeah? Because of maybe you have some permission restrictions, you don't want it, or you just even don't know it because it's in a different metastore located. Yeah? So you can't expect that the tool is doing one thing for all. But what you can do, you can use the onboard resources for all the object types it can. Think about scripts, and scripts you need definitely for automation, because you don't want to do it one by one or by hand. You want to have some scripts. If you have 10,000 plus objects or even more, you don't want to click through it. So you need a script kind of solution, and therefore our recommendation here would be take the APIs interfaces, because that's something what Databricks provides you on basically everywhere, every time. And just recently they launched also this documentation is now at one point, so it's easy to get it.
So we had a big journey, and now let's talk about lessons learned. And the first lesson that we learned, always talk with your customers, try to understand them. You're doing it not just to do it like an engineer, you need to deliver something for your customers. And for self-service, it's really important to understand what they want to analyze and how they want to do it. Define operation processing. Directly think about which group of people will have which rights and who will give them the rights. As a role concept should be considered before starting the migration. Technically, first thing, what you need to just enable the Unity catalog is in global AD admin. You just need to enable account console. Always think about object types that you have. Keep in mind the runtime changes. It can be something deprecated. The new functions can be rolled out. Clean up your code. Use these runtime changes for you to do your code better. Try and catch approach. Because if you will migrate the objects, it's not always possible to directly understand the error. It can be just a word error, but why you will not understand. Just try this approach, write a custom script to log the migration. Keep in mind the scheme connection limitations. If you have a large enterprise, probably you will have a lot of nested groups there. And first, always create a migration plan, completely. Do not start the migration without the migration plan. Think about your architecture, how you need to adjust it. If you have multi-layer architecture, you can just keep it, like we did.
So that means we're coming to the do's and don'ts. I hope so far we could catch you here, and we write based on our experience what you should do, definitely. And that is just because runtime lifetime is short, going to a LTS version, which means long-term supported version of the runtime, because you do not know if you need more time than expected. Yeah? So it means if you take a normal runtime and that maybe expires after 3 to 6 months because new things coming up, that might be a problem for you. Yeah? So because your whole migration project takes more time, people are maybe sick, process is stuck somewhere, permission is missing, whatever reason it might be, keep in mind to stay on a long-term supported version so that you're safe and don't come into the problem that you sit there and need to migrate during migration into another runtime. Second point, check your infrastructure. All firewall settings are set it correctly. Historically grown project or even long-living projects suffer a lot of some hacky things in the middle where somebody who had rights or is maybe even not anymore in the company or not reachable did something, so check your infrastructure here. That you don't have a blocker there once everything is done and you see, oh, wait, why I don't see data? I'm in the service area, I did everything right, everything is migrated, and data says, computer says, no, you don't see it. Third point, check for use case specific clusters. Databricks gives you the chance and the opportunity to use that. Don't ignore it. Use it because it's really, really powerful. Use the right cluster mode for the right use case. If they don't have certain limitations, I don't necessarily need a limited cluster. If there is one, use it. As Artem already said, check up for logging. Databricks is providing a lot of logging, but you cannot push all the responsibilities to the tool vendor because some of the logs or some of the errors might be produced by not the vendor code or maybe not the vendor tool, maybe just because of your user-specific code. Such like you define a view or a table differently than it was in the code block or in the code repository. So all those things can be a blocker. And in case you don't check that up and you don't know, you're sitting there and searching in the middle of the migration for an error you do not know. That leads me to the clean your code. It's really important, especially when you have that large projects, that large platforms, you have a bunch of code and everybody knows, yeah, that is intensive work to check it. It is maybe also something what costs money, but it may save you later when you do the migration because a piece of code could just interrupt the whole migration process and cost you more money because you need to roll back on production and users are not working. So that is everything what keeps it a bit difficult. So think about it like an IT project you do usually in an agile project approach that is easier to get and fix error as you have everything in waterfall. At the end you deliver and you realize, no, it's not working. And review and simplify your code. We had made the experience that we have usually different developers working at different code blocks, and not everybody has the same knowledge status. So some are less educated, some are specialists. Maybe it's even in a bigger structure, you have multiple consultant companies working at the same code from different companies. So you somehow need to check if they work the same way, even if you have encoding guidelines. That does not prevent you from being hit by that kind of errors and issues. And let's come to the don'ts.
Yeah, what about don'ts? Do not upgrade over multiple Databricks runtimes at once. It will be then not possible to understand to which runtime belongs the error if you will have the error. Just go step by step by step. Do not skip the LTS versions. Do not migrate in big bang. If your project is large enough, it will be really hard to understand the dependencies after the migration if something will not work. Do not think, I don't need logging. We already talked a lot about this logging, and it's really, really important. And do not think I will fix it later. Even if it's small error, small bug, and it's somehow working, it can be the predecessor for the big one, and then you will have a problem. And graphical user interface is really nice, but you will be not able to do all of that stuff only with a graphical user interface. Think about using REST APIs. Some features you can use only with the REST API. You can do a lot of automatization using REST API.
So that was our what's in it for me. Let's come to the point where we say what we achieved. And starting with business value, giving a short project outlook, and key takeaways to prove if my original provocation was right or not. So regarding business value, we thought more about different groups, and let's start with enablement group. So keep in mind, in the presentation we showed you where we come from, there was no proper governance path available. So now we added and enabled that. So customers now are able to do that. Aside of that, new user groups are added to the platform, or even possible to add to the platform. Which means departments, whatever this customer or you might have and want to add in a self-service manner, is now able to be added here. We heard today and yesterday about data democratization from Databricks itself, and that's the focus topic. That is something we enabled here. That the discussion within the customer company is working about getting all the data, getting the end-to-end view, making all the cycles, doing new business use cases, and so on. Due to the data sharing capabilities of the Unity catalog, we are now able to give them the chance to share their own data or their new sorts which they produce with the global as well with their own data from the local areas. So at that time, it wasn't possible. Now that is possible. And remember high security expectations. We enable the sophisticated security and permission concept here, so it could be easily extended and could be reached to all the company's units. Added value. That was the second group. I think that is the most important thing for the people who are in the management position. Well, through that, we are now able to have self-service capabilities. How that looks like, if it's everything is automated or it's just partially, or you're just thinking about other things, which we come later to, but it's not possible, That is an added value for the company because they can now use that to gain more values. We make a data federation here. So data is now freer. As I said, with the democratization part, it is now able everywhere to take that global data and bring their own local data. Due to that, there's an accelerated growth because all those units who are not able to access the global data and get all those insights out of it can now grow maybe their business. Maybe they have some cool idea and find it out, and maybe it saves millions of bucks. You do not know. We have an improved access management because we have just one point where we need to do that. We don't have that this many different processes to cover, many different departments to trigger so that they do this permission thingy. Due to the lineage capabilities, we are now able to follow the process of all those data, which is governed. So in case it's somewhere stucking, we can check that out. Due to the orientation, we focus and move more platform-wide to the customer or to the user-focused orientation of the whole platform, because before that we were just having this central monolithic approach, and that approach just, at that point was a bit unflexible for that purpose. And sure, remember at the architecture with the Unity catalog, we have that one point where we have to define all those permissions, which may cause a reduction of the operational cost because less people are involved, less processes are attacked, means for us less money needs to be invested. Unlock capabilities. We built the foundation for the new use cases. So that is something you should always keep in mind. You enable things. That is something what is on my key takeaways. We will see that soon. We enable data mesh architecture. When you're coming from a monolithic, really centric approach, it is not that easy just to move everything around and just be able, oh, no, today I'm able to have a data mesh, just build a product out of it and govern it properly, because keep in mind, everything needs to be governed. We have now a comprehensive data governance, which means we have the data in control as well as the code they are writing through the visibility of the objects, through the visibility of the data, through delta sharing capabilities. And additionally, which was not the original purpose, but is a nice unlock capability, is the usage of the monitoring, which was implemented recently from Databricks, as well as the query tuning. Keep in mind, you have a lot of Power BI reports going to your platform, and now you have the opportunity to check what they are basically asking for. So you can tune the queries, you can maybe change your data partitioning, and all those things are now possible.
And what about the future? Databricks rolling new features always, and we're already considering to use a query federation that was presented today. Attribute-based control and classification using tagging. A really, really nice feature. We are thinking about to use Unity Catalog data lineage globally for our customers, that they will be able to understand how the data moving. And another interesting feature that we want to implement is volumes.
So let's come back to my key takeaway provocation. I said governance is for all. I hope you agree, because governance is an enabler. Usually people in the IT industry, especially if you're an IT engineer, it's more something like a, I have to, instead of, oh, I want to. But it should be essential, because it enables a lot of things, and it makes you proper governance, means also regulation conform. It is nothing what you do just once. It is something what you have to do always, because the next use case might have a different architecture of permission concept, might have a different approach. You have a lot of things you should to keep in mind here. So it means governance is for all, and it does not yet rely, or it's just for large companies. Every company is needed. Everybody wants to keep their data safe. Yeah? Then, second provocation, hey, stakeholders are your keys. The stakeholders are not only the consumers, could be also some people somewhere in the architecture from start till the end. So you need to keep in mind their needs, yeah? Because they could be some, let's say, stone on the way to the target. Means here, you need to keep in mind not only the requester side, so also the beneficiary side. How they can benefit from that approach, so you can convince them, they start supporting you, and due to that, migration is better, easier, you have a better acceptance in the company. Huh? That was one point which was a key for us, at least, to have a successful migration. And finally, Unity Catalog unifies your data governance on your lakehouse platform. I think you hear it quite a lot, but here I want to point out it is a central point, and it should be everywhere, and every project should keep it and introduce it, because it makes life in multiple ways much easier and enables a lot of things. Yeah? So besides accessibility as well as security, but not only that, even maintenance or different other capabilities which getting unlocked through the point that they can be governed. And that's basically where we are. So time for a Q&A.